All right, guys, the Promised Land. This is the Greater Israel Project. This is what Yahweh promised to Abraham in the Bible. As you can see, it's pretty huge. It's the entire Middle East. It extends from the Nile to the Euphrates in Iraq, okay? It's a huge area. And if you say Israelis want to achieve the Greater Israel Project, they call you a conspiracy theorist. So like, we don't want that, okay? But explain two things to me. First of all, why is the Greater Israel map on a chevron of an IDF soldier, okay? These are soldiers, Israeli soldiers, and they wear the insignia of the Greater Israel Project, okay? This is the map. Also, if you look at the flag of Israel, there are two blue lines, right? These represent rivers, the Nile and the Euphrates. So if it's a conspiracy theory, then how do you explain these two things? All right, but I want to argue to, you know what? Pax Judaica, it's not about Israel or the Greater Israel Project. What it is ultimately is an alliance of transnational capital, multinationals like Google and Meta, and intelligence agencies that will be based in Jerusalem, okay? So secret societies will be based in Jerusalem, and they will use it as a headquarters for their global conspiracy. And they will profit from chaos and conflict around the world because they think that this is the culmination of the prophecy. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Jews will be in charge. Okay, so it's a much more complicated idea than people think it is. So where do we get this stupid idea from? Okay, it actually starts with Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton, you learn about him in physics class, you learn that he's the founder of calculus, you learn about Newtonian mechanics, okay? But actually, these are just side projects of his. He spent most of his life focusing on reading the Bible to understand the grand plan of God. And he wrote a book called Observations upon the Prophecy of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John, okay? And he believed he found the Bible code. And he was a member of secret societies. He was a member of the British elite. And if someone like Isaac Newton is telling you, like, this is what the Bible says, and this guy who found a calculus and who developed the 3 laws of motion, you'll probably believe him. But the guy was insane. All right, so what he did was he just looked at certain sections of the Bible and put them together into a story. Ezekiel 37 says that the Lord God tells the prophet Ezekiel that, yes, I've scattered the people of Israel, but now I bring them back together. And then I will make your nation great. I will make your city prosperous, okay? And this is all in the Bible. Ezekiel 38 says that eventually there'll be a war of Gog and Magog, when Gog and Magog will come invade Israel, but God will come and defend Israel, and he will destroy Gog and Magog. So the Israelis believe that for heaven to come, there first must be hell on earth. So Newton's plan to force second coming, okay? And this becomes the basis of Freemasonry. The Freemasons were first in England, but then where did they go? They went to America. Many of the founding fathers of America, including Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, were Freemasons. So America was founded in many ways to achieve this plan. So what's the plan? Well, you have to first reconstitute the nation of Israel and make it prosper, okay? It's really important that it becomes very wealthy. And in fact, Israel is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Have the Jewish diaspora return to Israel, and that means you promote prosperity, but you also have to promote a Jewish conspiracy. So while you're letting the Jews get rich in the West, you're also promoting the idea that the Jews control the world. Okay, it's all part of this plan. You have to rebuild Solomon's temple. You have to have the war of Gog and Magog. You have to have the Antichrist. You have Armageddon, okay? And this will force Jesus to return and usher in the millennium age. That's a grand plan. Most of these things have been achieved, okay? These are the Freemasons, and the top leadership is focused on achieving this plan developed by Newton. Eventually what will happen is that Adam Weishaupt will found the Illuminati with Jacob Frank, and they will infiltrate Freemasons. And why do the Freemasons allow Illuminati to infiltrate the Freemasons? Because Jews are an important part of this plan. They need Jews in place. They need Jews to go back to Jerusalem and build the nation of Israel and conquer the world in order for this plan to work out, okay? All right. Once we understand that it's the secret societies and their grand plan in motion, now it helps us understand why things turn out the way they did. For example, now we understand where British philosophy comes from. We discussed last class about John Locke, David Hume, Bentham, Mill, Marx, Darwin, okay? These are all thinkers sponsored by Britain to promote a certain understanding of the world that is materialistic, and which will build foundation for the second coming, okay? So John Locke said private property is what's important. David Hume, philosophy is pointless. Don't think about God, just focus on material wealth. Jeremy Bentham, utility is everything, okay? How do we know what's good, what's right? If it benefits someone. John Stuart Mill, liberty of the individual is everything. Karl Marx, freedom of the individual from material want. Charles Darwin, man is a monkey, okay? So this is promoting a certain worldview that will help promote the second coming. Look, if you just look at science, there are certain things they study and certain things they don't study. For example, they spend a lot of time studying particle physics. Who cares? Can I ask you this question? Who cares about particle physics? They spend billions, trillions of dollars on this stupid thing. They built something called the CERN particle collider to figure out what the underlying atom is, okay? Is it really important? Isn't solving world poverty more important? You can take all that money you spend on stupid collider and make sure everyone in the world has enough to eat. They don't want to do that, though. You also have focus on outer space, AI, okay? So the very direction of science, it's very, very specific, okay? They're trying to achieve a materialist understanding of the world. Also, if you try to, this is the collider, okay? I don't understand why they're spending trillions of dollars on this stupid thing. This is the current collider, LHC, in Switzerland, and now they're going to build a bigger one. And you see how big it is, right? What are they trying to do here? All right, guys, Jacob Frank. What Jacob Frank tells us is there are different dimensions. And another dimension is Big Brother, who's a friend of his, but he's stuck in his dimension. He's trying to come to our dimension, but he needs our help. So what's certain particle accelerator trying to do, right? Is it really trying to discover particle physics, or is it really trying to break the dimensions, like they did with the nuclear bomb? People believe the nuclear bomb, it was really about creating an interdimensional portal for Big Brother to come into. And now people are saying, is it possible the CERN particle accelerator is trying to bring in these interdimensional demons to our world to conquer us, to enslave us? That would make a lot more sense than particle physics, okay, guys? What does science not study, okay? It doesn't study consciousness, which is the number one problem in the world, right? Wouldn't it be nice to know how we think? We don't do that, guys, okay? There's absolutely no money or very limited funding in the study of consciousness. Imagination, intuition, anything in material spirit, okay? Like ghosts or spirits, we don't study at all. Religious truth. We also don't study kindness, happiness, and love. We don't study telepathy, connection. We don't study intelligence of animals and plants. We also don't study ancient architecture and civilizations. So if you go to these ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe, we only have uncovered 5% of it, okay? We don't care what is underneath Göbekli Tepe, because it's possible that if we were to discover everything, then it would refute traditional paradigms of the world, including evolution. So science is focused on spreading one particular paradigm about the world and discounting everything else. Another thing that's really interesting about science is it hasn't really improved in the past 50, 70 years. We're spending billions, trillions of dollars on science, but we haven't really improved science that much. There have been no great discoveries. And there are three reasons why, okay? The first is specialization. You're only allowed to focus on one very specific problem. The other thing is you have a very strict bureaucracy. So as a scientist, you spend most of your time actually applying for funding. You actually don't spend most of your time trying to solve the problems of the universe. And the third thing is credentialism, where if you don't have a certain PhD and you don't belong to a major research university, you're not allowed to talk about science. So because of these three reasons, it's hard to do science. It's hard to discover truth. And that's the intention. The intention is to prevent people from discovering the truth of the world. Now, science is not very good at creating new things, but it's very good at faking things. Also, guys, it's possible they might fake something else, called an alien invasion. Science is very good at that. It's not good at creating spaceships, but it's good at faking spaceships, okay? There's a difference. So this is Thomas Kuhn, and he wrote something called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he just says it's natural for paradigms, new ideas, it takes a very long time for paradigms to take shape. But then if that's the case, how do we explain Einstein? The moment he proposed relativity, boom, he's famous, world famous, okay? Darwin, the moment he proposed evolution, boom, he's world famous. And so one explanation is secret societies control the world, they have a certain eschatology, and they are promoting things that push their eschatology forward. And that's how the world works, okay? We also discussed last class the idea of Konspeak, written by this Jew in Britain who becomes the first Jewish prime minister, Benjamin Disraeli. And it's about how Jews control the world. And we were like, why is this happening? And I said, because it's part of the plan. Because not only are Jews supposed to prosper in the West, but people are supposed to think that they are part of a grand conspiracy, okay? Because the end goal is anti-Semitism and force them to return to Israel. You also have something called the Schofield Bible, okay? Which is to take Newton's plan and then explain how the Bible and the plan work together, okay? And this is called premillennial dispensationalism. All right, so 1917, you have Balfour, the British government is sending a letter to Lord Rothschild saying, I have the pleasure of allowing you to create a homeland for the Jews. So again, this is part of the plan where the British want to create Israel, but they're blaming the Jews for it, okay? They're saying, it's the Jews who want to create Israel. So in 1948, they create the nation of Israel. And remember, okay, the nation of Israel, it is not part of this grand plan. It's what the Jews aspire to. It's what the Jews want. It's all initiated by the Jews, okay? This is really important. Now, one thing that they say, one thing that the Israelis say is that we deserve Palestine because this is what God promised to us in the Bible. Now, the great thing about Jews, okay, and this is why I have tremendous respect for Jews, is these Jewish intellectuals, they are first and foremost committed to the truth. So this is Arthur Koestler, okay, who is a Jewish intellectual. He wrote something called the 13th Tribe. In this book, what he tells us is this is nonsense, okay? The Jews, most of them don't come from Israel, the Middle East. They come from Ukraine. And you have three different types of Jews. You have the Sephardic Jews, which basically are the Jews who were expelled from Spain, okay? These are real Jews. You have the Mizrahi Jews who were in the Islamic world. Again, these are real Jews. The blue, these Ashkenazi Jews, they're not real Jews. They're converted, okay? This is something you're not allowed to discuss at all, even though the evidence is so stark. The other issue with the Ashkenazi is that they make up 80% of all Jews in the world today. And so you go to Israel and it says, like, we're here because this is what God promised to us. That's nonsense. But again, you're not allowed to discuss this, even though, again, the evidence is stark. This conspiracy also helps us, again, explain the JFK assassination. So this is the book King Kill. It goes into why the Freemasons would want to kill JFK, the sort of ritual sacrifice ideas behind it, okay? 9/11, all right? Why did 9/11 happen? Because it's all part of this grand plan. 9/11 happened because America needed to go to the Middle East and destroy the Middle East to create Pax Judaica. And that's exactly what they did. Again, Al-Qaeda is, yes, I understand Al-Qaeda did 9/11, but then why did you have to go destroy Libya? Why did you have to go destroy Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, okay? So, and the last place that they need to destroy is Iran in order to achieve the Pax Judaica project, okay? ISIS, guys, ISIS. You know, these fanatical Muslims, and they hate Israel, but they never attacked Israel, okay? They've never ever in their history attacked Israel. That's why they're probably controlled by the Mossad, okay? And these guys go around and destroy the entire Middle East, but they never attacked Israel, okay? Really strange how this happens. And all this war on the terror, what it does is it creates all these millions of migrants to Europe, which is destabilizing European society. And these societies, look, Libya was once a middle-class, prosperous society, and now you have these slave markets. You've got these millions of Africans who are sold as slaves in Libya. It is an anarchy now. So 2015, you have all these immigrants going to Europe, and the Europeans are like, we don't want these immigrants because what are we going to do with these immigrants? They're poor, we don't have the money, we don't have the system in order to accommodate these immigrants. And Angela Merkel, who is the leader of Europe at this time, the German chancellor, she says, we can do this, guys. It has become a dumpster fire, okay? Guys, in 2015, Everyone knew this was going to happen. Everyone knew that if you brought in millions of immigrants who did not speak English, who did not share European cultural values, and who didn't have much education, this would happen, okay? And at no point did the Europeans say, screw you, America. You did this to us. And you could argue that, okay, maybe it's bureaucratic incompetence, but at the same time, it could also be part of the grand plan. Okay? These are the red heifers. People spend millions of dollars to genetically create perfect red heifers because nature doesn't produce perfect red heifers. And what people say, the rumor is that these red heifers have been sacrificed already. So now they're getting ready to rebuild Solomon's temple, which will be the site of the world government, okay? Pax Judaica. Let's go to Silicon Valley. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. How did they become billionaires? Guys, I don't think they're smarter than us. In fact, I don't think they're that smart, okay? Steve Jobs is a smart guy. I will say Steve Jobs is a really smart guy, but these other guys are pretty normal guys. How did they become billionaires? People say that Silicon Valley is a hotbed of innovation. That is complete and utter nonsense. The hotbed of innovation is the American military because they spent billions of dollars on innovation, okay? So these are computers that they developed for war purposes, okay? For the nuclear bomb, to fight World War II, to fight the Cold War. They spent billions of dollars to develop this technology. And then what happened was this technology became smaller and smaller, and so much smaller that Steve Wozniak was able to take this technology and create an own personal computer. Now this is kind of strange because this R&D was funded by the American government. How did this one guy, Steve Wozniak, how was he able to take all this knowledge and then go and make his own computer? What did the American military let him? In fact, what's really strange is that while Steve Wozniak was building his own computer, which will become the Apple computer, he was working for Hewlett-Packard. In other words, everything he did should have been the IP of Hewlett-Packard. And in fact, Steve Wozniak said to his boss, listen, you guys pay me, you guys train me. If you want this PC that I'm going to create, I'm happy to give it to you. And Hewlett-Packard said to him, no, keep it for yourself. That's really strange, guys. What corporation is so generous? Why would they do that? Well, there are three good reasons, okay? The first reason is that if the American military were to promote personal computers, every American in the world would say, screw you, okay? You guys are the military. You guys are responsible for the Vietnam War. You guys are responsible for millions of deaths around the world. Why would I take a computer from you knowing that it's from the military? You're gonna use a computer to spy on me, man. You're gonna use this computer to turn me into a robot. There's no way I'm gonna touch this computer. But it's coming from Steve Jobs. Oh, Steve Jobs, he's a visionary. Of course I'll buy this personal computer from Steve Jobs, okay? Second is, at this time in history, America is at war with the Soviet Union, okay? Which system is better? Communism or capitalism? And so if you said that, okay, we're the government and we spent billions of dollars to build this technology, that proves communism is better, right? But if it's like, no, it's these guys working by themselves in Silicon Valley in the garage, they get all these ideas for themselves, that proves capitalism is better, okay? That proves entrepreneurship is better. And the last reason, and this is the most important, is if the US government built this knowledge, all right, it belongs to American people. So how do you monetize public knowledge? Well, you create private companies controlled by secret societies. And we can now understand all these guys, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they're front people. They're just poster boys. They're not wielding command. It's just secret societies that's wielding control, okay? Another example is Google. So the American military spent billions of dollars, trillions of dollars of taxpayer money to build this fiber optic network, which is the base of the internet, okay? With this fiber optic network, you couldn't have the internet. And then these two guys in their 20s took over this network and created Google. It's the same thing as, the government spends billions of dollars building a highway, okay? And then you come along and say, I'm going to build a toll booth. Same thing. Mark Zuckerberg, guys. Look. He's not that smart, okay? And look, the other thing is, he was 19 years old, he stole this idea from his Harvard classmates, and then he got billions of dollars from venture capitalists to start Facebook. Where did he get this money? Facebook is not a great idea. right? Social media, great, but I mean, like, I could also start a social media company. You could start a social media company. The other thing is, like, Yahoo at one point offered this guy $1 billion to buy Facebook. We'll give you $1 billion. That's a lot of money, right? You would have taken it, I would have taken it, but Mark Zuckerberg's like, nah, I wouldn't know what to do with the money. That's retarded. Why did you start Facebook in the first place but to make money? Okay? So you have these 3 questions. First of all, why are these people giving him money? He's just a 19-year-old guy. He's a Harvard dropout. That's all he is. No experience, nothing. Second question is, if you're someone who's that young and you succeed so much, you would suffer from hubris, from ego. You make a lot of mistakes, right? The guy's never failed in his life. The third thing, of course, is I understand why Amazon, Google, and Apple are successful, okay? Apple has Steve Jobs. Google controls the world search. Amazon controls buying things, right? What does Facebook do? It doesn't do anything, right? So how can we explain why Mark Zuckerberg is so successful? Well, there's actually an explanation. This, guys, okay? It's all part of the grand conspiracy to create an AI surveillance state, which is what Pax Judaica is. This guy, okay? No personality, no ideas of their own. And OpenAI, guess what, guys? Makes no money, but at the same time, they get trillions of dollars from investors to build data centers, okay? And these data centers allow you to make really nice pictures and videos online that do nothing, okay? Why is all this money being spent except one day to create a surveillance state, okay? That's what makes sense.